All right. Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. So, we are very excited that we get to talk to you today. So, my students got to see all sorts of very gorgeous stuff that you've made over the years. And they have some lovely, lovely questions for you.
Okay. Yeah, great.
Oh boy. So, Emily, the very first question that they had for you was, what got you into art?
Well, it started when I was very young, like really, really young. I started when I think one of my earliest memories is of drawing. And I started drawing animals a lot, and especially birds for some reason. I drew a lot of birds because they kind of freak me out. So yeah, I love drawing birds. My parents kind of supported me, but not really. My mom was not really in support of it. So my dad, who was a great artist, he did oil paintings and portraits a lot. He went behind my mom's back and got me art lessons, and it was at like this private school, and I fell in love with it. It was great. And also at the time I fell in love with the creatures in games like Final Fantasy and Pokemon, and how they combine like different things to make creatures. So that's the whole thing that got me into drawing creatures, and I love seeing like the concept art for it.
That's amazing. I kind of like it. So, like little sneaky art lessons, and it turned
Yeah.
out to be amazing. Yeah, one of my favorite things to collect are like the art books from movies and games and things where you
Hmm.
get to see the process of them making these sort of iconic creatures, and the process it took for them to get there.
Yeah, I have so many art books just in yeah, on my bookshelf. Is not books, it's all art books.
I mean, that sounds like a great kind of a collection to have. That sounds wonderful. Um, so you got these art lessons when you were very young. So
Mhm.
you've been doing this for a really long time. Was there something in particular that just really sort of grabbed your attention? Like, was art something that you instantly loved, or did it take a little bit of time to get there through these art lessons?
I instantly loved it, but I didn't take it seriously until I was going to take these art lessons. But yeah, I've always just loved it. As I said, my earliest memory is just of colored pencils and crayons and stuff. And yeah, I didn't really think of it as like a career sort of thing. It was definitely more of a hobby. And I think through my life, I just wanted to keep it as a hobby more than trying to make a like huge career out of it. It would have been nice to do that, but I just liked having fun with it.
Yeah, I guess there's probably a lot less stress if you're doing
Mhm.
it for fun rather than be like, oh my goodness, I can't pay my bills unless I make this amount of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had friends who are concept artists that do go through that. Yeah, and they have a lot of stress trying to create like 50 creatures in 1 week or something. Yeah, or like drawing the same hallway 7 times for
Oh,
like the entire day. And yeah, it's all their stories are not for me.
okay, yeah, yeah. I feel like some of the joy can get sucked out of it a little bit that way.
Mhm.
But I'm glad you're still able to do so much. You produce a lot of work, and we saw that you're posting all the time different things that you're messing.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
I also used to do a lot of like pencil, charcoal, watercolor, pen. I've tried like every medium. So yeah, I make a lot of stuff with like different mediums.
Wonderful. Kind of scooting into our next question. So you've tried a lot of different things, and trying new things, you always have the risk of things not going the way you plan. So what happens when you make a mistake on your work? What happens if you mess up?
So mistakes are bound to happen. Um, I've made a lot of mistakes like with my oil paintings and like watercolor and pencil, and you try to like erase all the time, and sometimes you just gotta accept your mistakes. So I kind of eventually started accepting it, like it's gonna happen. I've tried whiting out stuff before, and it just makes it look so much worse, and you're and you try to fix things and you make it worse. So I just try to embrace those mistakes. So I started using just pen a lot, just starting to draw straight with pen. If I made a mistake, that's fine. I won't try to like cover it up or anything. I'll work around it. Um, and then yeah, just like try to improvise and yeah, just try your best.
Yeah.
We try to make things like really perfect, but you know, art doesn't have to be perfect all the time. You don't. It doesn't have to be like you don't have to be such a perfectionist with it.
Yeah, I get that sometimes with my students. I'll be doing demos with my students of art things, and they'll be doing things on their art things. And sometimes they'll make a mistake or I'll make a mistake. And I try to remind them of, at some point, if you make a mistake, you can either fix it and that will work out, or you can try to make it into something else to sort of make this into something maybe you didn't expect, but maybe it'll work out in the end, which is I think, like, it's like half of the artist battle. If you make a mistake, how do you roll with it? So
Yeah. So sometimes I'll make art and it won't come out the way I want it to. It will like have all these mistakes that I guess only I can see, and other people are like, yeah, that's fine. But it bothers me. So I just put it in my so-so pile. Like it's an okay pile. It's not my best work, but you know, your work isn't always gonna be perfect. It's not gonna always be 100% perfect. And yeah, you're gonna have some bad days and you're gonna have good days. Yeah.
absolutely, but that's how you know that you're still learning. If
Yeah,
everything you do is
exactly.
always perfect, I can't imagine how boring that would be.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, another masterpiece, I'll just
Mistakes
put
are
perfect
fun.
here.
Mistakes are fun and they give the piece of personality.
Absolutely, sometimes the best things come from mistakes.
Mhm.
You just kind of roll with it and make it into something new.
Yeah.
So you make lots of artwork. You've made drawings for forever. This is a question that's probably not actually something you can answer, but how many drawings do you think you've made?
Well, according to Instagram, I have like 1,000 posted in the past 2 years. So, and then I think according to DeviantArt, it says I have 3,000 or so. I don't know. So I want to say around 3,000, 5,000, including the sketches.
So
And
like this many.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
like at least that many.
okay. More than three.
Um,
More than three.
Sometimes I'll have like drawings that I don't even remember. My friends will tell me like, "Oh, you drew this," and I'll be like, I don't remember that. I have so many drawings that I just don't remember."
Before we were recording this, you're like, oh, when did I draw that for you? Well,
Yeah,
apparently
exactly. The Stomp It
2007,
On.
ancient times.
Mhm.
Um, Wonderful. So my students got to see you work with a lot of different media, and one of the things that was really cool about that is that the things that we learned in our art class, you're showing in your artwork all the time too. We saw different sketching techniques, we saw different art mediums that you were using, which is wonderful. But one of the things that they had a lot of questions about was this program that you worked with called Tilt Brush. Could you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Oh, Tilt Brush is so fun. I heard about Tilt Brush like probably 3 years ago when it first came out or so, maybe earlier than that. Um, and it's a program in VR where you're holding two controllers and then it's kind of like Photoshop where you can rotate your canvas and it's like this big empty space and then you make brush marks and they show up in 3D. Yeah, it's very cool and you can scale it, you can like mirror it, there's so much you can do in there and there's so many textures and then you can make your own textures and it's just so fun. Um, yeah, and then I think, yeah, I didn't get it earlier because I couldn't afford a VR system because those things are really
I
expensive.
imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, but my husband actually bought me a VR. So
Oh, great.
yeah, and then I got the program and I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Nice. So is Tilt Brush something that you can only work with on VR? Like there's no desktop version or anything?
No, yeah, it's only on VR, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
good to know because they were asking me about it. I was like, I've only ever heard of Emily using it, so I have no idea how this works. Um, but yeah, they like the idea of being able to sculpt stuff in 3D. I know there's some programs that will do that. It's just finding one that the school has access to. But
Yeah,
that
it gave
looks
me a
real
little
different.
motion sickness. Like at first, it took me a while to get used to, but there are a lot of videos on YouTube that people can check out. That's how I learned to use Tilt Brush. I just went on YouTube and I looked at tutorials. It's actually really easy to learn.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love being able to like have YouTube as a reference for art things, because
Mhm.
that would have been so cool when we were growing up, because
Right?
we're ancient. But like when my students have a question that I can't answer, I'm like, you know what? I bet there's a great tutorial for that on YouTube
Mhm.
that you can look at. Which is
Internet is amazing.
so you've sculpted with tilt brush a bit. Have you ever done anything with like 3D media, like clay or carving or anything like
I
that?
have, but since I moved around a lot, I lost everything, unfortunately. I've done stuff in stone.
Hmm.
Yeah, stone was really fun. Clay, paper mache. I built one of my creatures in this big paper mache, like with chicken wire, and I think it was like linen. It was a really long time ago, and it was really big. Like I can't even scale it.
So it's a hugging size is what it is.
Yeah, it was huge. And then one day we left it outside and it rained,
Oh no.
and then bugs got in it and
Oh no.
it got really gross. So it was destroyed. And I was really upset about that because I made that for one of my finals in class.
Oh man.
So then my friend made me a new one, a miniature.
Oh,
And this is
what?
him. This is a Lapari. Is
Oh,
named after like a rabbit. So it's supposed to be like a faceless rabbit.
nice. He's got
Yeah.
lovely decorations. He's very
Yeah.
fashion
Yeah,
conscious.
he's a Christmas bunny. And
I
he's
love it.
very cute.
That thing is, I've got a hiccup. That thing is adorable and beautiful.
Yeah,
And I like the
I
size
love
of it
this
too.
thing. Yeah, so I keep it indoors now,
Yeah.
just because.
Yeah, that's good. So it doesn't turn into a wet, soggy, bug-filled pinata. That would be that doesn't sound like the ideal. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound
So yeah, I would like to get back into working with clay. It's just that I don't have the space for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It takes
my
up a lot of space.
does. It does.
Yeah. I do love it though, and I wasn't like amazing at it. I wasn't really good at it, but tilt brush is actually helping a lot with the sculpting because I
Yeah.
don't really need to have space for that other than having the VR headset.
That's true. That's true. And a lot of what I noticed on your tilt brush sculpts is that a lot of times I'll see people sculpt out like a sketch version of whatever it is that they're sculpting in these sort of like long strips of clay that act almost like a 3D brushstroke. And then they go in and then they refine it until it's the texture that they want. I've seen a lot of people and I don't have the vocabulary to describe it as well as I would like to, but it reminded me a lot of what I saw, what you did digitally. They're starting with, sort of, I guess you were working with polygon sort of shapes and tilt brush,
Mhm.
but they're using sort of long strips of clay to build on muscles and textures. And you'll see this a lot probably in like, art books for 3D modeling
Yeah.
sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You can do the same in tilt brush also. If you just go like this and pull back, you just create a line. And that's how I create my creatures. I just build like a skeleton first. I build like what form I want it to take. And then I'll start with the polygons and the big chunks. And it does feel like clay, just like mashing things together and
What it
taking
sounds
things
like, yeah.
apart. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
probably a lot less messy too, which is nice.
Oh, yeah.
You probably look a bit bonkers from the outside. You're in a room and you're just kind of like
Yeah. Yeah.
Latin
Really
ghosts, like
crazy.
doing a great dance. Um, so moving on to other things that you've done. So you've done creature designs, you've done sculpture, and you're also very well known for this adorable comic called Stupid Fox. And I have the coloring book here that
Oh,
you
yay.
donated a bunch of these to my students, and I still have some, and I'm going to bring some in because now we have students back in school, or at least some of them are. How did you come up with the idea for this cutie patootie?
Very, very easily, actually. I was in high school, and I don't feel like I should say this, but I wasn't paying attention in class. And I was sketching in my notebook. I think it was like history or math class or something. And then my friend looked over from her other desk, and she was like, "That fox looks really stupid." And I don't know if she meant it in like an insulting way, but I just thought it was a little funny. And I thought that's actually a really catchy name, Stupid Fox. So I decided, oh, maybe I can make something out of this, and it sounds really fun. And I did really enjoy drawing the fox. Like I started drawing the fox more and more in my sketchbooks and notebooks. And it was just a very like cute, simple idea that I wanted to kind of roll with and see where it went.
Yeah, we really enjoyed looking at these in class because one of the things I really enjoyed about it, and my students had noticed this too, is that a lot of the comics that you posted are very sort of simple 4-panel comics. They're beautifully drawn, but what's really great is that most of them don't have words, which makes them pretty universal between
Yeah.
people who, English might not be their first language, or it's really accessible to kids, or people who are dyslexic. So it's a really accessible, cute, wholesome little comic.
Interestingly, Stupid Fox did start with words. I did the first few comics were with words, and then someone in one of my viewers, they told me, "Oh, why don't you try doing some without words, or why don't you make it like a silent comic?"
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and I took their advice, and I thought, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. So if you look at the first 10 comics or so, I think there were words in there, and then eventually I just cut it out completely, and yeah, that worked better. So yeah, just listen to people's advice, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not common that you find a silent comic because I think and I don't say this in any sort of deprecating way to other comic book artists, but I think that you have to have a really strong way of telling your story if you're just using pictures. And you do that very, very well with your comic, which
No,
is
thank
a
you.
hard thing to do and an uncommon thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Because usually people look at a comic and they're looking for a punchline that they can like make a pun out of or anything.
Yeah.
But this is mostly just an adventure and, foxes and things they wouldn't really be talking anyway. So it works. It's very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. One of my students had asked, now generally they all seem to be pals with each other, but your Stupid Fox comic has a rabbit, a fox, and a bunny. Should any of those characters get into a tussle, who do you think would come out on top in a fight? Who would win in a fight if they got into one?
My first thought is Bird, because
Oh,
I don't think people remember that Bird is a character.
Bird doesn't show up as much.
Yeah, Bird is like the side character that's but side characters are also very important because it's like that friend that doesn't talk too much, but he's still a friend, and I think Bird is the toughest. And there was actually a comic I did featuring Bird where Bird fought off an eagle to save Fox.
Oh,
Yeah.
not Bird.
Yeah. But I mean, if between rabbit, fox, and raccoon, I want to say rabbit. Definitely rabbit would win the fight. He's very tough on the inside. I mean, he's covered, I think he's all just fluff, but underneath the fluff is probably all muscle because all he eats is vegetables. Yeah.
Nice. Good to know.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, if Monty Python's anything to go by, rabbits are incredibly dangerous. And Night of the Lepus, which is a movie you should definitely Google.
Night of the what?
Lepus. It's an old horror movie from I think the early 80s of killer rabbits, and it's absolutely terrible.
Wow.
It's a terrible movie that people paid money to both produce and watch, so good for them. Scooting on along to back to your creatures that you are known for as well. How do you come up with the combinations of animals that you sort of combine their features together to make a new sort of creature?
So usually what I do is I just pick 2 or 3 animals that I really like, and I'll see where that goes. And sometimes, most of the time, it doesn't really go where in the direction that I want it to, unless I'm seriously like I need to design this for someone or something like a game. But most of the time, also what I do is I start with just drawing a head, and then drawing the rest of the body, like just making blobs and shapes and just seeing what comes out of it. Like if you've ever played this game where you take a piece of paper and then you just scribble all over it, like just make like random marks, and then you give it to your artist friend or something, or you take a look at it and then you just try to find like shapes in it, and then they'll trace it and see, oh look, well there's a dog here. It's kind of like looking at clouds. So that's what I do. I kind of like scribble like a dog's body, but make it like super long or like super twisted. And then I'll just see where it goes from there. And then usually I'll try to draw things that creep me out more, because it makes me appreciate those creepy crawly animals that creep me out. For some reason, deer freak me out.
That doesn't
deer,
look scary.
deer and horses. I think because their legs are really long and I just it doesn't sit well with me.
They have those
So
teeny tiny little feet too. It's like
exactly, yes. Like how do they stand? So I like drawing deer a lot and
yeah.
insects like spiders. Those are things I'm scared of, but I'm also very fascinated with them because they just look so interesting to me. So I tend to draw things that um, I I don't really like, but I also do like.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I understand
yeah.
that's a really cool, interesting take on it because most people would be like, "Oh, I'm drawing these things because I love them and I can't get enough of them." But you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, these things,
Yeah, it's
they're the
fascinating.
worst, and I definitely want to draw them because they're the worst and they're haunting me." So that's great. So sometimes now this is sort of a oh, I skipped a question. I apologize.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
Now, we saw that you named some of your creatures. We saw the very lovely vegetables who had
Oh, I love vegetables.
clearly had the teeth for eating vegetables, and so many eyes, like the potatoes that it loves. Uh, do you name all of your creatures?
I try to. Yeah, and then most of the time I try to give them more sciencey names.
Hmm,
So I have the sketchbook that I've actually never shown anyone because I keep forgetting I have it.
fair.
Where this was a sketchbook of like a bunch of creatures that I drew before.
Oh my,
This whole sketchbook is creatures. I should actually really upload this sometime.
yeah.
But yeah, I would give them like scientific names. So this one's called a mange.
I
And then yeah, it's like I wanted the sketchbook to be like a field sketchbook of creatures.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so there's like probably 50 of them in here or so. So yeah, I try to name all of them. This one's called an ippy.
Oh,
But I really like to name my creatures things that don't really make sense, like vegetables. I think at the time I was craving vegetables, or I was not craving vegetables. It just sounded interesting to me. Other times I let people name my creatures, like
hmm.
Spencer. Spencer was a name that was decided by the community, and then I just like mundane names also, like just regular normal names like Greg, Kyle, Kelsey, Daisy.
Hey,
I just like, yeah, cute names for my
nice.
creature.
Now I need to know what creature Kelsey looks like, which may or may not be a great decision on my end to find out. You'll be happy to know that one of my students named your elk deer creature an eelk.
Look, I
Just
like
elk
that.
with extra e's in it, which is great. Which is great.
That's so much better.
It's wonderful. I don't know what elk deer was originally named, but
Oh my gosh, that's really good.
I thought it was, they're so smart. Um, so this is tiptoeing into the realm of fan art. But have you ever made a siren head creature?
I actually don't know too much about Siren Head. I've heard of it. It's like an internet meme. I've seen
Yeah.
it and I've seen the video and I love it. I love the concept of Siren Head. I love that idea of combining like an object with a creature, especially this giant towering creature. So again, with the tiny feet, I can't stand that. But I've seen Siren Head and I love it. But I've never drawn anything like that. I do want to try to start doing stuff like that, like making like larger creatures.
Yeah.
It's just that I like drawing like the details of like the face and stuff. So I haven't really explored drawing these giant creatures. And yeah, I don't think I've really done any fan art of creatures. Maybe I'll like take inspiration from them, like Siren Head, and maybe I'll use that sometime. And
We need like air horn head like brr. It's like
air horn head, yeah.
Just honk honk or like bike
Yeah.
horn.
Yeah.
Be great. Uh,
Yeah.
I guess so you had sent me this in the mail. I guess this tiptoes into fan art, but I have a little creature named
Mhm.
Stompedon. Hello, and you
Yay.
sent me a terrifying nightmare version of it, which I absolutely adore. Um, clearly they're the same creature,
Yeah, I
but
don't see a difference. It's
no, I
exactly
mean this is just Stompedon after a hard day's work. But I love this, and it is seared into my brain forever.
Yay.
Let me see what else is next. Do you have a favorite digital art program to use? Because a lot of what you do seems to be like half and half between like sort of traditional art media and digital media.
Mm. Yeah, I did a lot of traditional stuff when I was in school because, well, it was a requirement and they didn't teach Photoshop. So as I said, my dad like snuck me out for lessons and he got me Photoshop classes at like this private school. And I fell in love with Photoshop. I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And it was when it like first came out.
Mm,
So I learned that when I was maybe like 14 or 15. And then for years, that's all I used. I didn't really use anything else. Sometimes I would draw traditionally and transfer it to Photoshop and then paint over it. Uh, and then back then, I drew everything with a mouse. So
wow.
I was using Photoshop with a mouse, and until my mom finally caved in, and she's like, "Okay, okay, yeah, she can like do her Photoshop stuff," and she bought me a tablet, and that changed my life. Like once I got the tablet, I was in like the whole new world opened up for me. I would definitely recommend it if people wanted to get into digital art. But recently, Photoshop has not been doing so great. Their program is like charging people like a lot of for like extra stuff. So everyone, like all my friends and all the digital artists, are actually transferring over to Procreate on the iPad. And Procreate is very, very similar to Photoshop. All the tools and stuff are very similar. They have more brushes, I feel like, than Photoshop. It's a little more intuitive and it feels like, you're drawing on the screen. Rather than someone having to buy a Cintiq, which is very expensive, they can have an iPad, just download Procreate for about $10. And yeah, I would really suggest that if you guys have access to it.
Well, we used to have iPads at school, and then we transitioned over to Chromebooks. So
Mm.
the unfortunate thing is we probably can't use Procreate, which stinks because I know that that's a program that people find particularly user friendly these days.
Mhm.
But their Chromebooks have a touch screen, and if I'm going to be able to do so, I'm going to try to get them some styluses to actually draw on it because they're trying to use their finger, and that's
Oh
really
yeah.
difficult. And we can't be carrying around mouses all over the place because they
Mhm.
would inevitably get lost. But they really are taking to digital art because it's incredibly accessible, especially for the students I have at home who don't have space for things like paper and art supplies and things
Right.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Um, let me see. Oh, one of the questions was, have you ever drawn Miss Wales? You drew me as a farting whale once, which I feel like is probably the most accurate portrait anyone has ever drawn of me.
Oh my God, I was
Uh,
just drinking.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, a soaring farting whale in the sky. I mean, that's
I,
probably the answer to that question is clearly yes.
again, I don't remember that
Well,
at all.
thankfully you dated this. This was like 5 years ago, so it's been a
Wow.
while. It's
Yeah.
been hanging up in my studio for a long time.
I think if I were to draw you again, though, there's one photo of you I've seen on Instagram where you're like frowning, like you're
That doesn't narrow it down.
like really frowning, and you reminded me of one of those grumpy frogs. So
Yeah, I mean, also a very accurate, very round, grumpy. Definitely have some extra neck meat going on. I'm essentially a frog.
I should probably draw you as like a frog combined with a whale then,
That sounds terrifying, and I can't
like a giant
imagine what
frog
that would
whale.
look like. But you know what? There's no one in the world who could do it better justice than you if you do that. um, so you've done a lot of creatures, you know, combined creatures, made up creatures, everything like that. Do you ever draw objects to go with those creatures? Because we've seen a lot of like the sort of world that you've created where there's just an incredible diversity of animals. But do you ever draw like objects in a strange style too?
I can't say that I have. Usually when I'm drawing objects, I try to be as accurate as possible
Okay.
because it's like if I'm drawing a soda can or a glass of water, then I want it to look like a soda can or a glass of water. So I haven't really distorted them in any way. I like that idea though. Again, going back to Siren Head and combining objects with creatures, I think that would be something interesting to explore. My problem is though I'm not good with like drawing things like geometrically,
Yeah.
and I have problems with perspective. That's
So
something I really need to practice. Especially cars. I can't draw like cars and like just really geometric objects like that. But yeah, I think I stick with that style with creatures because Creatures are a lot more organic. You
Mhm.
can do a lot more with them. You can skew their shapes. You know, it's like people, they come in different shapes, animals come in different shapes. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with that, and it's great.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't draw cars either. I draw the same car I drew when I was
I
5.
can
Like,
draw like a
cool.
cartoon car. Yeah.
Yeah, all of my cars look like the play school car. Like Richard
Exactly.
Carey drew this car.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, his eyes were closed. They're terrible. Like cars are a nightmare. So, do you have a favorite project or drawing that you've done?
Recently, I did one called the Demon Deer. If you see if I can pull that up really
I'm gonna
fast.
scare my students. Demon deer sounds terrifying. Oh
There we
no,
go.
yeah, that's a nightmare, and it's right behind you. It's right behind you, Emily.
It's okay. This guy got it. Well,
Oh,
it's
okay,
all
good.
my image. But yeah, this is the Demon Deer. I recently drew this one, like I think a few months ago. I really like this one because it was based off of a dream.
Oh no.
So I had a dream that I was lost in this village and there was this giant deer creature wandering around. And it was so vivid in my head that I had to draw it.
Mm,
And it is my favorite drawing because you know how sometimes you have these images in your head that you want to draw, but they never come out quite the way you want them to.
right,
I
yeah.
think this image is something that I got down perfectly, like it from my head, from my vision. So yeah, this is my favorite creature and creature drawing.
I do kind of like how demon deer has like these little baby puppy ears. It makes him a little more
Yeah,
interesting and less
yeah.
terrifying.
And I tried to make his like weight like really, you can see his
Yeah.
arms kind of bending a little bit. Again, those feet like freak me out. So
Tiptoes.
it was like a really heavy creature, and so he was kind of buckling on his own weight. So I took that into consideration by like bending his knees a little bit.
Yeah. Hopefully this nightmare deer can like get its way to like maybe like a chiropractor so it can get the help it so clearly needs because
Yeah, yeah.
it's got the heavy feet and it's just not having a great time. Poor fella. That's a terrifying and awesome drawing.
Thank you.
Um, let's see what else. This is kind of a throwaway question, but you know we're getting towards the end. Do fish get thirsty? What is your opinion on this question?
I actually had an argument with my husband about this a few weeks ago. Because it all started with is hot dog a sandwich?
That's I guess it depends on
Yeah.
the
Well,
definition.
we had an argument about that. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm going to answer the first question. But he says that because fish are already in water, that they're never thirsty. And I say that they're always thirsty because they're always in water. And after thinking about it for a while, I think I have to agree with him.
Well, I mean, do they actually ingest water or do they just breathe it? Because I feel like if you're thirsty, you're ingesting something. Like I'm thirsty for this delicious.
According to the internet, they do not get thirsty because they do
Well, the
do
internet
not.
doesn't lie.
Yeah, but I like to think that because they're always in water, that they are always thirsty.
It's true. As soon as you take a fish out,
Because how would you know? How would you know that you're thirsty if you're always in water?
I don't know. This is like an existential crisis question.
Right?
It's a whole nother.
I'm gonna bring this up with him again later and see.
Cool. Well, I apologize for any marital problems. Right get an angry text from you later. Another question, because you are a master of understanding creatures and how they work, my students had the question of what is your opinion and thoughts on the world's most exciting and terrific creature on the planet?
Well, first of all, he has beautiful eyes. I love his eyes. They remind me of the barrelfish eyes, where they're always pointing up. Yeah, but I know the barrelfish are always looking up because they're looking for prey, right? But I like that this one has these sharp teeth and flaily arms.
Yeah.
He has sharp teeth, so I was thinking maybe he's always looking up and looking for birds or insects to eat.
Maybe, yeah.
Probably flailing to get them. Yeah. He looks like a crocodile or like an alligator, yeah. And then he's probably, according to like his color, he might be always in the mud, camouflaging, like some red clay or something.
Yeah.
And then always just, I like those eyes, just always looking up.
Maybe
Unless
he
they're
lives in
like,
a bog.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
bog color.
yeah. Unless like their eyes are like chameleon eyes, then they can always
Well, I
move
mean,
in.
his eyes, painted as they are, they're kind of going in different
Yeah,
directions.
yeah.
Looking up at you, and he's kind of looking up at the ceiling a little bit, just making sure.
Yeah, yeah. But he's really cool. I love it. I
He's
love
pretty
it so
great.
much.
I'll
And
have to
then
email one to you.
I love how he's standing like that, like it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah, like a tree anteater. He's like, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like,
I
stay
mean,
away from me.
I feel like he could win in a fight. These are pretty flimsy, floppy little arms, but their
He's
leg
so
looks
cute.
pretty powerful. He's like a kangaroo, maybe. He's
Hmm.
gonna kick you until you're dead.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it.
Well, thank you for our resident creature expert. Now we know more about this thing.
I love his texture also. That texture is really cute.
He lives. One of his main habitats is inside of a waffle iron, I think. So
Oh,
that's why he's screaming. He's like, ah, I'm for breakfast. So, yeah, very nice. All right.
breakfast monster.
Last question that my students have. They're in middle school. They're really just starting to learn what they're really going to be interested in for essentially the rest of their lives, which is such an exciting time for them, or incredibly stressful. It's probably one or the other. But do you have any advice to give to students who are starting to understand, yeah, I really like art, or I'm not sure if I like art yet?
They're gonna tell you to practice a lot. Everyone's gonna tell you practice, practice, practice. But I always think that that is not the only thing that you have to do, because if you practice something wrong long enough, it becomes a habit.
Mm.
So if you're going to practice drawing in one style all the time, that's the only style that you're going to know. So, and along with practice, daily drawing and all that, there's a lot of studying to be done.
Mm.
You have to study different styles, look at different artworks, kind of broaden your horizons and stuff, and look at what other artists are doing. Especially when there are phases when you get bored of art, because then you stop drawing for months and then you're out of practice, right?
Mm.
And when you're out of practice and you try to get back into it, you feel terrible and you feel like your art is terrible. So when you get bored, it's good to try out new things, try out like a new medium or try out a different style. I actually got bored for a while with art, and I discovered color changing markers, and they're really cool. And they made like art so much more fun again, and just like enjoying it. And that's really important. I think that's the most important thing, is to just have fun with what you're doing. If you want to draw creatures, you can start studying animals, like learning how to draw animals. And I think Miss Wales is perfect to learn that from, because she is amazing at drawing animals. She's so good. She actually inspired me a lot to draw animals too. Her use of color is amazing. So yes, if you have any questions or advice, I suggest going to Miss Wales for that. But yeah, just have fun with it. Like with creating creatures too, that's what I'm doing. I'm just having fun mashing two animals together and seeing what happens.
Oh, I love it. That's really good advice. There is something to be said about getting stuck in the same thing. It's sort of like exploring. If you're stuck in the same room all the time, try going to a different room. If you're
Yeah.
Yeah, I always encourage my students to just try new things all the time, because you're never going to know what sort of thing you're going to like best until you try a lot of them. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really good advice.
Yeah.
Emily, it's been so good to catch up with you and to talk to you. Thank you so much for answering my students' questions. I know that they're really going to like seeing the stuff that you showed us in today and answering their question, and they're gonna enjoy being able to hear from people who are masters of their craft.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
It's been wonderful to talk to you, and hopefully I will see you on the internet. So I'm going to stop recording, and then I'll say proper goodbyes to you. So
All right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.